Now, to discuss this, John Konrad is the CEO of G Captain. He's a former drill ship captain and the author of Fire on the Horizon. John, good to have you back with us, sir. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, and thank you for having me.
Okay, what do you make of this concept by the incoming president of the United States?
I think it's an excellent idea. I think we gave it away for a song, and Panama has not been very supportive of American progress, American maritime ideals, and there's been a lot of shenanigans going on down there since. Panama Canal accounts for 6% of world shipping trade, but it's 70% of its traffic is trade to the United States. So it weighs heavily on our economy and our maritime dominance, and is a very strategic waterway for the U.S. Navy, which they're allowing China to buy land all up and down the canal. So there are serious national security concerns.
Yeah, China has been very active in the port and shipping space, hasn't it?
Absolutely. It purchased large percentages of two major ports in Panama, but also China has been supporting pushing Chinese nationals up through the Darien Gap and helping to fund the busing of migrants over the Panama Canal to the United States. We talk about how difficult our southern border is to defend.
Yes.
Well, Teddy Roosevelt had a solution for that, and it's build a canal. You can't swim across the canal, but Panama has been partnering with NGOs to bus migrants over the Panama Canal.
Yeah, it's wild, and China's we've discovered through this fentanyl crisis, especially, they control the whole supply chain leading into the United States. All of this poison that's being dumped into our country, and a lot of that has to do with shipping, and a lot of that has to do with the cartels and their cooperation with China. So it's just bad up and down. That treaty that the United States was party to as a result of Jimmy Carter's work in the 1970s. I feel like you don't do a treaty like that unless without having a clause that says, hey, if things go south for the United States, we can reassert control.
Right. And Panama had wanted us to come back in, and this U.S. Southern Command was based down in the command zone, and we've given away a lot of that real estate to these NGOs who are not helpful to us. But this question of selling the Panama Canal for $1, it's not the first thing that Democrats have sold for pennies.
Yeah.
The Philippines was a territory of the United States, the jewel of the Pacific. Subic Bay was there. Well, FDR gave away that territory to the Philippines, and then Clinton gave away our most important and strategic Navy base in the entire Pacific, which was Subic Bay and Clark Air Force Base, which would be absolutely critical for, a fight against potential China. Now we're improving relations with the Philippines thanks to the last Trump administration, getting things back on track in there, but we don't have the facilities that we used to. And Panama is especially important, not just because of the canal, but what happened was in World War II, a lot of the shipping did not want to put a U.S. flag on the back because they could get attacked by U-boats. Mm-hmm. So the State Department and CIA, backed putting a lot of these supplies, critical supplies, on Panamanian flagship. It's called the flag of convenience. Well, after we sold the Panama Canal for $1, the Panama Registry was under U.S. control. They broke away from the United States. So a lot of illicit shipping around the world is on these Panamanian flag ships. And then a member of the International Maritime Organization started a law firm in Panama that was found to be corner of the Panama Papers. So a lot of these illicit shell corporations, which are running the fentanyl, but also a illegal transaction around the world, as the Panama Papers showed us, was created there in Panama, in and around the canal zone. And it all leads back to this. So you have the flag of convenience, you have the Panama Canal, which is not hurting American economic interests. But then you also have these Panama Papers, the
Yes.
shell corporations, a lot of banking interests down there. It's not just the canal. There's a lot of shenanigans going on surrounding this. And now they control the International Maritime Organization in London. The Secretary General in there is Panamanian. He got approved with China's help. And the first thing he did was fire the U.S. Coast Guard admiral who is kind of running the organization. So that body controls maritime laws internationally, including oversees the Red Sea, the South China Sea.
So basically, we're enabling our adversaries and we're allowing illicit activity to take place in a location that, as Ronald Reagan insisted back in the 80s, or back in the 70s, that the United States had built, bought, and paid for the Panama Canal and therefore should not relinquish control of it. And now look what's happened since we did that.
Right, and you have to remember that it was an issue throughout the Reagan administration, and then everyone forgets, but President Bush Sr. went and he invaded Panama because they were not doing their interests. And everyone thinks that was about drugs, and that was a critical component. But we now believe in retrospect that a lot of that had to do, Bush was former CIA, with these Panama Papers and illicit corporations that were coming in, and the absolute importance of Panama through the shipping registry, the canal, and this corporate shell companies. It's kind of a legal free zone, and that had to have weighed in on that invasion of Panama. But then what happened was we were coaxed to the first Gulf War by European, and a lot of that was shipping interests. A lot of UK wanted us to liberate Kuwait. And in doing that, it took our attention back away from Panama. We had secured it. We had secured the zone, and we're promoting American interests. And then we got sucked into the first of the Middle East wars, which have been horrific for our nation and national security interests. So a lot of these roads lead back to Panama.
It's amazing.
And Trump says it's a joke, and and there is humor behind it, but there's a lot of importance in this small strategic country, which the United States created.
Yes.
It was part of Colombia, but when we built the canal, we took it from Colombia and we gave them, the Panamanians, their independence there. So we are responsible for their sovereignty going way back prior to the canal completed.
Yes. So the Panamanian president, Jose Raul Mulino, released a statement on social media this weekend reacting to all of this, saying, quote, "I want to express precisely that every square meter of the Panama Canal and its an adjacent area belong to Panama and will continue to. The sovereignty and independence of our country are not negotiable. Every Panamanian here or anywhere in the world carries it in their heart, and it is a part of our history of struggle and irreversible conquest." So the leader of Panama is saying there's no way this is happening. What do you make of that, John Konrad?
Well, of course he's going to say that. And then the mayor, I believe it was of Panama City, said, "We will never let Panama become the 51st state." But you got to, they had not even been statehood. Prior to that, they were a territory of the United States. So like Puerto Rico is now, which does not have the right of states. And it's not all of Panama that we're interested in or want. We want security in that Panama Canal. And we, should have Southern Command back in there to secure it from potential sabotage. A canal is rather easy for illegal, nefarious actors, potentially like China or all these people crossing the Caribbean Gap. If some of them have explosives, strategically state-sponsored, it would be easy to disable the Panama Canal. And because the 70% of canal traffic goes to U.S. interests, and it's absolutely essential for the Navy not to have the fleet split, that you don't want. If that went out, then you would have destroyers stuck in Norfolk that would have to go all the way around if there was a war with China. So, at the bottom line is there's a huge economic thing. There's all this shenanigans going on, but at the end of the day, this is critical for U.S. interest. And it's not just Navy ships, but the Army moves most of its equipment by ships. And so does the Air Force. So all of the Air Force bombs on the East Coast, a lot of the Army, instead of being able to travel by that, we would have to truck them and rail them to San Francisco, and the ports would be congested like we saw during COVID, where we wouldn't be able to load all of the supplies on the few ports that are available there. So, our military may not be able to get to a war in the Pacific without this canal.
And finally, John Konrad, the president's been saying, President Trump said at that Arizona rally that we're being ripped off by the Panama Canal, that the fees that American shipping has to endure going through the canal are onerous. What do you make of that point?
Yes, they are onerous, and they've been suffering droughts recently and having these absolutely ridiculous auctions where one slot will go for millions of dollars. And the reason for that is they built an expanded Panama Canal a few years ago so they could get larger ships through and they could charge higher fees. Well, in engineering that new locks, they didn't ask for American expertise. They did it their own, and when they built it, there were all cracks in the cement, which is leaking water back into the Pacific. So they want to blame this on global warming, this drought, the lower levels. But there were also engineering faults, which has led to this low water and allowed them to have these auctions and recoup millions of dollars for individual transits. Now that drought is relieving. There's been rainfall there.
Wow.
But they want to invest more in a new lakes to over, and that's going to raise fees again. So it's not only that fees are high now, but they could go astronomical as they, have these climate fixes for what they call as climate change.
Wow. All right. Well, it sounds like Panama needs a better landlord. President Trump perhaps wants to become that guy. John Konrad, CEO of G Captain, thank you very much for your time today. Merry Christmas. Really appreciate you as always, sir.